Welcome to the My House Podcast, a show about the past, present, and future goings-on at the My House Youth Drop-In Center in Wasilla, Alaska, with your host, Michelle Overstreet.
Hi, welcome to the My House Podcast. I'm Michelle Overstreet, your host, and today I'm joined by Holly Gittlein, who is one of our longest-term board members, founders, and has led a charge for art, both in the building, community art, and youth-engaged art with our clients since the very beginning. So before we start discussing art and art events with Holly, Isaac, do you have any housekeeping for us?
Yep, just one last reminder that the event that is going on at Nunley Park on August 31st is being put on by the Matsu Opioid Task Force, and that it is in awareness of International Overdose Awareness Day, and then also National Recovery Month, which is the month of September. We've put out a lot of PSAs and been focusing on that because the cafe is providing free bacon cheeseburgers from 12 to 4 that day. The tagline is bacon is 100% better than drugs. So come get free cheeseburgers. Vendors are going to be there with recovery resources. And then we have speakers and a community fellowship kind of in that 4 to 7 slot as well. And that is just right here by the building in downtown Wasilla.
And we're going to be dedicating the memorial garden that has a centerpiece that is a sculpture made by Holly Gittlein in the first art camp at my house last summer, where the youth were involved. Tell us a little bit about that, Holly.
Well, Michelle, it was quite a collaborative community event. Luckily, we were able to secure some funding with the Rasmussen Foundation and the Alaska State Council on the Arts to put in this rather large installation. And it's called The Path to Liberation. It's 22 feet, aluminum sculpture, 3-dimensional. And I designed it so that the kids could take part of it. And what we did is this glass and found objects mosaicing that we encapsulated in resin.
So beautiful.
Yeah, it came out great. It's rather stunning. And it was, it took several months to complete, and the kids partook in different events. We had a week-long camp where we were not only just making this mosaic art pieces, but also learning how to connect to nature and healing through nature. And some of the kids, even after the camp, I took them to my shop, and they, did some grinding and polishing on it. And so it was really engaging for a lot of these youth, and a great way for them to put their energy into something that was a community public piece.
Very, very cool. I know Terry Ann Kilborn from Arctic Mermaid Mosaics was part of that. The birds that are flying through the pathway to liberation are really the eye candy. In a lot of ways. They sparkle and they move, and it was fun to see that through the winter. We had one of the biggest windstorms in the history of Wasilla, and I was laying at home with COVID during that windstorm thinking, oh God, please help the birds to stay in the sculpture where they belong. And it held up just famously. It was beautiful. We all came back, and the sun came out, and it was glittering in the sun with the mosaics on there. And so,
yeah, that's funny, Michelle. Just to interrupt. I mean, that's one of my worst fears as an artist. I have public artwork like all over the world and in different places, and my fear is that a piece will fall down and stab a child or something. And so, after this windstorm and that thing survived, I was like, there's nothing that could tear the path of liberation down.
It's totally good to go. It's awesome.
Yeah.
And so they're going to be dedicating that in the Memorial Garden on the 31st with the Matsu Opioid Task Force, and really acknowledging that, that whole Memorial Garden project just came out of raw grief from losing kids over and over and over, and we literally just dug a hole in the side of the parking lot and said, we had a Eagle Scout that did the brickwork around the back, but we literally just said we have to have something where people can go out there and get their hands in the dirt and work and remember those who have lost. We just lost a young man this past week. And it's very, very difficult for all the staff. There's an incredible sense of failure, that what if we didn't do everything we should have, what if we would have just had that one more conversation, what if, and it's all fantasy. The reality is that we can't save everyone, but we do every damn thing that we can to put pieces in place to try to connect and intervene and save the ones that we have. So part of these events is just getting young people to come and engage in that recovery. And what I really love about your camps and your art is that a lot of times that's what they're interested in. They're artistic, they're creative, they're curious. And I remember even in the very beginning when we were painting the walls in the cafe green, you had kids that were helping you paint in there.
Yeah, it was great. I think about the relationship with my house from right off the get-go, especially when we got our building, was engaging a lot of these youth. And, some of them are so creative and intuitive. I think it's part of the survival mechanisms that they have. They just are tapped into these other realms or energies and just ways of reading the environment. And it also, they're able to express themselves a lot differently. And it's a very healing way for them to look at their lives. Even like the mosaicing is a great example of just picking up broken, shattered pieces of scattered items across the, bits and pieces of stuff, and then putting it back together into something that's beautiful, like rearranging things and picking up the shattered mess and making it into
really
something new.
Healing about that, isn't there?
Yeah, there is. It's very powerful. And even the kids who come in and they say, "Oh, I don't really do art," or "I'm just a drawer." I just say, the thing about art is you can't mess it up. I strongly believe that. And, I'll usually set out like just little outlines or something for them to do. And sure enough, they can fill in the blanks and color by number, and then they break out and do their own things. It's an explorative part for them to do physically, and then internally it also opens up new pathways in their minds,
We have a tree, the tree of life in our cafe that was a welded piece that's on wheels, and it's just this big sort of, some people describe it as scary. Some people describe it as, as awkward. It's just this big, really kind of weird tree.
It sure is.
And my favorite memory about that is wheeling up in the parking lot, and here you are. You got a welder in the back of your truck, and you got a kid on each side of you, and you guys are freaking welding in the parking lot at my house, putting together this thing. And the kids that helped with that from the very get-go still come in here and they still talk about it. And I really believe that when you take the time, and you personally, because you're a very well-known artist and you have a really unique way of just connecting with kids and making them feel comfortable right from the get-go. But I think community at large, when people connect, take the time to teach them something they're interested in or curious about, or help them open up their mind or their heart to something they haven't thought about or tried before, like the mosaicing. I love to walk out there and just listen to the conversation and kind of see what's happening, and the idea that they were taking sort of all of this conglomerate of like broken jewelry and broken pottery and shells and glass and putting it into this framework of a heart and wings that they could visualize going on the side of the building, so they can stand in the middle and it looks like they have wings. They got that, and they got it in a way that that made them want to participate in the project and get it finished in the time frame that you had. They were really working, some of them after the class was done, the camp was over and they were still out there putting little pieces of stuff in the spaces on the mosaic boards. And I was struck by the fact that they, within a day or two, they had built relationship to be committed to a project with you. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it was a wonderful transformation to witness. When we first started, I think there were 7 of us the first day. About half maybe were from my house, and half of just, kids from from Wasilla and Palmer from the Valley. And, they were kind of quiet and didn't know what to think of each other. And some knew each other, so they grouped up. But the camp was divided into like two programs. So in the morning we talked about, and the name of the camp was Wings of Freedom. So the focus was freedom and what freedom meant at an individual, personal level, at sort of your family, community, friend level, at a global level, and then at an intergalactic level, because we are big thinkers here.
Oh, I heard the talk about that, and they loved that. It was like so cool.
Yeah, and just exposing them, we talked about what freedom meant and ultimate freedom, like what you really can control about freedom for yourself. And it boils down to being able to control your own mind and your own actions. So we looked at different techniques of, number one, how to connect with nature, to be really grounded in something that is real, because nature is real, right? Nature really is a place to find absolute truth. A tree will always be a tree, and a rock is always a rock. There's no argument in that. You don't need a fact checker. It's like, it is what it is. And that we're part of that, so we can connect to that. And we just learned some techniques about, meditation. We did some qigong and some fun stuff, and exposed them to some things they probably won't get exposed to in mainstream. And it really primed them for, making this like public display of Wings of Freedom, and spurred a lot of good conversations. And by the end of the class, people had all made friends. Everybody was changing up with their groups. And, we did a couple of sculptures outside, one at Wasilla Lake made from found natural objects, flowers and rocks and sticks. And then also at Matanuska Lake, just the sort of things to give to the community as well. So it was just a very opening experience. And I at the questionnaire at the end of it, I asked people how they felt, and a lot of them just wrote free. Great.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. What are some things that you have enjoyed watching grow in the My House? You were a founder with me. I mean, we met at the Colati Brothers coffee shop with a group of about 6 or 8 people. And you came in and said, I want to be involved in this. I want to know what we're going to do and how are we going to fix this. And I love that perspective, by the way, because I felt like you were really speaking my language, like, oh, we're going to, somebody looking for solutions, right?
It was actually I'll never forget this. I'm a member of the Wasilla Rotary Club, and you and Michael Carson came in and talked to our Wasilla Rotary Club. That was like, what, 2008 maybe?
Mm-hmm, a 9 maybe?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And holy cow, he said that there was like 500 homeless youth in the valley, and those are the ones that they can count on at schools. And I was just shocked and appalled. I couldn't believe it. I was like, oh my gosh, how can we have that many? I mean, and Wasilla back then was a lot smaller. I mean, we've doubled. Like, who knows how much bigger we are, but it's like, this cannot be. And so
Isn't that funny, Holly? Right now, our client count is 488.
Oh, wow.
And we see about 100 different kids a week.
That's crazy.
So our numbers were...
Right. And that was years ago. I can't even imagine what's going on now. But, I just was on board right away, that meeting. And I think you probably announced that you were having a meeting at Colati, so I was there. And I remember at the very beginning, it was a lot of, I had a big curve of, like, understanding, what is homelessness? How does it all look? How do you fix it? I didn't know much about that, but that didn't matter. It was just more of finding solutions, and we sat as a team and just really dreamt. We would talk about and envision a place where things could happen, and sure enough, we have created that collectively. And one of the things I'll never forget, Michelle, is you as a leader. I learned so much from you regarding how to run an organization and how to just engage people. You let everybody play. It didn't matter if they were bikers, little old ladies, conservatives, Republican, or Democrats. You were just like, if anybody wanted to be on the team and had something they wanted to do, you supported them, and you gave them like encouragement. You let them on the team, and I think that was probably the biggest reason why this organization has been so successful because everybody wants to help in their unique ways, and they were allowed to, and you found creative ways to do that. And it was really, just being around that really changed my life and how I operate. So I just want to thank you for that.
Good.
Publicly, thank you.
Well, Holly, you have a big family. I have a big family. In my big family, it's really diverse. I mean, we've got everything from soup to nuts and way over here, right-wing Republicans and really super lib Democrats and age from, 90 to newborns. And so just to be able to be inclusive with my family, I had to be pretty open-minded. But I also grew up here. There's a funny quote, I think it's Ron Johnson in The Office says,
Ron Swanson.
Ron
in Parks
Swanson.
And Rec.
Yeah, Ron Swanson.
I'll correct you because these are my shows.
Okay,
these
good.
Are my shows.
Yeah, Ron Swanson in Parks and Rec says, you get a lot of job offers in your lifetime, but you only have one hometown. And the truth is that when I came home in 2009, this is my hometown, and I know a lot of people, and I don't want to leave anybody out. I don't want it to be something where people don't feel welcome to come in the door and offer art or offer whatever it is that they have. The bikers are going to come here on Tuesday and have lunch with us. And they're just, and so here's a great story about that. This Wind and Fire Motorcycle Club has been doing this fundraiser with us for years, and I love it. It's so much fun. There's something about the rumble of those motorcycles, right? It kind of makes your
leather.
Oh God, it's just amazing. And so you get, it kind of gets your blood pumping, and you're like, wow. And in the last year, we were looking for an ambulance for the mobile crisis team that Carl over at True North just got funded. And lo and behold, two of the guys that helped get the ambulance donated for the mobile crisis team were part of that motorcycle club and knew what we did. So when I called them and said, hey, we're looking for an ambulance. Do you have anything that you might donate? It's this, they're first responders. And they did, and they donated this $55,000 ambulance. And so when you don't let everybody in, you close doors. And there's a lot of misunderstandings about bikers. We have a lot of the bikers that are part of that club also participate in BACA, which is Bikers Against Child Abuse.
Right.
And they're total badasses. I mean, they walk into court with kids and just do stuff that some of us like dream about. Like in your fantasy, if a kid was going to testify against their abuser, this is what you would want them to walk into court with. And they're the people that do that in their leathers. The big giant guy with the tattoos that's 6'6" and decked out. And he says to that little child, you don't have to look at this person. You look at me.
Yeah.
And I got your back.
Yeah.
And so first off, we wouldn't be here if we had alienated anybody, because we swam upstream with organizations saying that this would never work. And
oh yeah.
I mean, that I was crazy, that I wasn't qualified, there
was a lot of pushback. We had to cut through some pretty thick weeds. And, I think what really led us through is like everybody was dedicated, everybody cared. I mean, we met like every week, a couple times a week. I mean, we switched over to that church. I don't remember.
We did. Wasilla Bible
Rock
Church.
Yeah.
It was a big space. We had 40 or 50 people coming.
Yeah, and we started. Yeah, and it was just like we were about it, and pieces just started coming together. But there was a lot of pushback from the community, which was hard to understand. And I think we didn't focus on that. We just kind of let it be water off our back and just kept going forward, and really were able to create something that was very much needed. One thing that just popped into my mind, Michelle, was when we were sitting down, we had our building. I had gone and come, and I'm kind of a world traveler and I bounce in and out. But we were reworking the the laws. What do you call it? The bylaws.
Oh, the bylaws.
The
Yeah,
bylaws
rewriting the
and our
bylaws.
vision and all this stuff. And
Revising our strategic plan.
strategic plan.
Well, our first strategic plan was a 5-year plan, and we accomplished everything in 3 years. And then our second one, we never make it to the end. We accomplish everything. So we have to rewrite our strategic plans early every time. So that's what we were doing.
Yeah, we were updating because everybody's just, this whole community. I mean, everybody wants to help. But I remember we were rewriting our vision, and it was like, to end homelessness in the Mat-Su Valley and all this. And then I just thought, this is intergalactic. Like, this isn't just, this is global. We are not just, it's not us alone, right? If anything, the Miles has taught me, it's like networking and being connected to a greater body of people, of energy, of intention that will shift paradigms. And so we changed our vision to end homelessness, period. Like everywhere.
Yeah.
Like all places. And it's just like, we'll do it.
Yeah. That comes up periodically because we get new board members who say that is an unaccomplishable goal. We should not have that as our mission. And I always think about you, Holly, and I think, yes, it's audacious, but you never get what you don't ask for.
No, we're going to do it.
Right? I mean, and how does it feel when you come back? Because you're gone for the better part of the winter, and you kind of pop in the spring and summer, and every year you come, it's different. It's a little bit different.
It's amazing. I feel so blessed to still be engaged with this, and there's a lot of the same case managers and same faces and new ones every time. And last fall when I left, this whole building was being gutted and reorganized and chaotic. And then you come back and it's gorgeous, and things have fallen into place. And, you and me, we talk a couple of times a year when I'm gone. Like, we have a couple of proper powwows, hour or so, probably 2 on the phone that keeps me up to speed. But every time I come back here, it's just like coming home. It's just a home feeling, and then I always meet more kids that I just fall in love with. And then we stay connected through different things, and I try to mentor them, and they end up mentoring me. And it's just like, it's such a give and take. But it's always, this place is it's like home. It's really a safe place, a place where I know my buddies are here. People got my back, no matter if I do foolish things or not.
And that's the reality, right? I mean, I think I had a phone call one time about a client that I was helping, and a man called me and said, "You are going to be sorry. This is not somebody that you should invest any time or any money in. And this person is going to make you look bad because they're going to ultimately fail, and then it's going to be on you." And
Thanks.
I said, thanks for the advice, but whatever this young person does is not on me, it's on them. And my job is to put a foundation underneath that person so that they always have a place to come back to. And what you're describing is that as soon as I feel something about their performance, that I should bail. And I said, please don't ever call me again. And I just felt like that was such a statement that as adults, we would own so much of the success or failure of a young person, that we allow that to impact what we offer them in terms of support. And that one single phone call was so helpful to me because it helped me recognize what we don't want to do, really. Mm-hmm. And what you're describing is that feeling of unconditional acceptance. The average age of a kid coming in the door here is 18 years and 2 days old. They just turned 18.
Yeah.
The average age of our client overall is 23.
Right.
5-year difference because they stay with us. They come back and tell us when they buy a house or they buy a car or they get a promotion at their job or graduate from college, because they know that we're always going to be cheering for them. And that piece that you just described about being able to come back and these are your people and you know that we got your back.
It's family.
It's family. That's an important feeling for kids to have when they walk into a drop-in center that wraps those services around them, because they have to believe that they're worthy.
Right. Yeah, and you know, just doing this last camp, I think, like I said, we started off with 7 kids the first day, and by the next day we were up to 10 because they were bringing kids in, you know, and the other kids started jumping in, and it was just it was a great place to like grab kids who were sort of just loafing around in my house, not really knowing what to do. They get pulled in by their buddies, and I think it just, you know, what they were looking for was family. Mm-hmm. They're just looking for someone to connect to. And my house is like a beacon of that in this valley, in this state, you know. It's flashing family, love, acceptance. And you know, one of our mantras that we've had with my house, I love this thing, and I use it all the time, is, you know, we don't shoot our wounded.
Yeah.
It's because everybody's wounded. Nobody comes, like, you come out of the womb wounded, you know? Right. I mean, it's like, it's not an easy existence here on planet Earth as a human being, especially in these times. So having, like, tolerance, unconditional love, acceptance, flexibility, all of those things, you can find them right here. Moment to moment, everything is expressing that here. And I really think it's very apparent in the success that my house has with kids and them coming back after years.
Yeah, we did a great job accidentally with our message of inclusiveness today, because today is primary election day when we're recording this. So we totally just knocked it out of the park. I feel the same thing happened. We recorded an episode of Diag Nonsense right before here, and it's kind of been seeping into everything. But yeah, that message is so important with what we're doing. And I think that kind of ties into our trip to DC too, is it doesn't really matter what your background is. Like, you know, at the end of the day, so many people in this field just want to help people. And there's so many ways that we can all work together to do good.
Mm-hmm. It's so true. I also think that people underestimate the impact of art and creativity and the opportunity that you took to teach some of the meditation and grounding, and some of the things that you were teaching were not things that you would learn in school. They're not things that are common knowledge necessarily, but for a kid with anxiety or depression, it can be really, really helpful. And I think sometimes we miss that. We get too focused on the concrete objectives of finishing high school and learning to drive and getting a license and the check the box things. And we kind of forget about their little soul that sometimes just needs to weld a big metal tree in the parking lot, right?
Right.
Or do some mosaicing with a whole group of kids that are just, what I really enjoyed about that when I went back there was there were 3 tables of kids and about a dozen people, maybe even a couple more. And everybody was just quietly chatting while they were putting the glass pieces into this mosaic. It was a real easy conversation that was inclusive. And correct me if I'm wrong, but we had an age range of about 8 years. We had every race that could be represented back there. We had, I don't know about religions, but I know that there were a couple of really conservative kids that were there. And there were also kids that probably had no religious background. And I really enjoyed the conversation, just the quiet talking about things that was happening and the acceptance.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a very diverse group. I think we had the youngest was 13 and the oldest was 22 or 3, something like that. So it was widespread, all colors and shapes and sizes, and it was universal. It was beyond religion. It was beyond spirituality. It was just sort of, like I said, really connecting to nature and just having truth of existence and learning how to, we call it, in my line of work and stuff, we call it soft technology. Humans have this soft technology within them, like you're harmonizing your heart and your brain, the neurons in your heart with those in your brain, so that you are centered and you're connected with nature, the universal presence of things and operating from that. And, we learned about your flight or fight and your different types of your nervous system and ways to combat that or ways to address it and recognize it. So it was really helpful for them. And a lot of them afterwards told me that they've been using it. There's a couple of them that they got a little triggered during the camp. Some things came up. It was perfect. It was kind of, I was wondering if that would happen, and it sure did, and was able to kind of take them aside and go over some of our techniques, and they're still utilizing that. I just talked to one of them today, and that's great, and they'll probably share it with other people, and that's what it is. You teach them, and then they become teachers to their own, group of kids in their own housing or in their own circle, and that is what creates those wings of freedom.
Love it. So August 31st, they'll be dedicating the Memorial Garden and your sculpture in the Memorial Garden. And then September sometime, we'll be doing the install on the side of the building. If you want to drive by and see the sculpture that's going to be dedicated, it's at 300 North Willow. And the Willow and Herning side is where the Memorial Garden and sculpture is. The Wings of Freedom will be on the Willow side, street side, facing Nunley Park. And so come by and see that in September. It's going to be beautiful. Holly, thank you so much for taking the time to be with us today and talk with us and kind of reminisce a little bit, but also thank you for your incredible influence over all these years of supporting kids. And thanks for being on our podcast. This podcast is recorded at the My House Studio in Wasilla, Alaska. Our producer and editor is Isaac Smolden, and I'm Michelle Overstreet. Until next time. Thanks, Holly.